Welcome to a new episode of Outside the Panels with your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes.
Welcome to an episode of Outside the Panels. I'm your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes, and you are lucky to catch me as I have just come in from having some dinner. Yes, it was burger and chips. Don't worry, my American friends, that's burger and fries to you. My English friends, you know what I'm talking about. Well, once I've had my burger and my fries or chips or whatever you want to call them, for me, it's time for some dessert. And for me, dessert is always cheesecake. With that in mind, time to speak to a writer, co-creator, artist, co-creator of a new Kickstarter with shades of Barbarella. It is the fantastic Randy Nunley and Dean Page. Gentlemen.
Hey.
How's it going?
Hey. Not too bad.
Excellent. You need to talk about a new Kickstarter project you've got coming out, which goes live today.
Yeah.
Excellent. So what is it? What's this book called, and how can we get a hold of it?
Dean, you want to run with that?
Well, this is called Cosmo Natalya, kind of a play on the idea of the word cosmonaut, and it's Journey to Planet X is the first issue in a 3-ish issue series. We'll see how it goes. You never know. We might just do a giant third issue, but we definitely have a pretty nice big story to tell, and we're gonna have a lot of fun getting there. And I think each issue is going to introduce so many new ideas from the previous issue that it'll kind of have like a nice snowball effect.
Cool.
And you could probably get it through our Kickstarter campaign. And after that, probably not until the next Kickstarter campaign. And a lot of that kind of has to do with, just how margins work in general with publisher fees, distributor fees, stores all getting, not that they don't all deserve their pay, they all do a lot of work that I'm not willing to do. So, I mean, it's good to have them. I don't want to be marketing the thing. I hate marketing the thing.
I've written the book. I'm not going to stand at 9 o'clock in the morning selling the damn thing. No way.
I don't want to work a register. I've already done that.
I'll price check on Venom #4, please.
Well, and there's this big hashtag going around a lot right now on Twitter that's like hashtag comics broke me, right? And it's a lot of people are sharing their stories about how little they get paid and stuff like that. And right before we came on here, I was reading one that it wasn't disagreeing with it, but it was also throwing the counter side, which was like, well, think about how much a book costs. After you break down the share for the store, the share for the distributor, the share for the publisher, the share for the printers, like what's left to even distribute to everyone else, and that's why if customers can go as direct as possible to the creators, that cuts out a lot of that work. But that also means that there has to be a lot of extra work on the creator's end as far as the marketing stuff, the distribution stuff. I pack up the stuff myself. Like if you see a piece of masking tape on something, I put that there before it got shipped out in the mail. That was, I did that. I don't do staples
in the book. That's why.
Right? No, I don't do that. I do fantasize about that. I think to myself, how many books would I have to justify a printer that could print it ourselves? Because I really want that. There's so much in comics that's like nostalgia, right? Like and a lot of that has to do for me with like the tactile sense. And I'm still struggling to find an independent printer that can make it feel. And nobody will even print with newsprint anymore. So like, good luck with that. But I would at least want it to feel like the early 90s Image comics, I guess. I'm like 42, so that's my nostalgia. We all have our own nostalgia, whether it's like the early 2000s or the 70s or wherever it's at,
I don't like the way you looked at me when you said 70s. Yeah. Son of a. I'll tell you what, should we have a look at the video from you?
That'd be cool.
Yeah, we'll do that. 2
Absolutely.
seconds. Let's get this going. Let's get this show on the road. Here we go. This is the trailer for, oops, where's it gone? There it is. For, I can't say it, Cosmo Natalya. I tell you, I have trouble with names. Here we go. Check it out.
Is there audio?
There is.
Do you remember your dream?
Oh, there it is. Sweet.
Right. I think we pretty much got everything we need to know from that. Excellent. Randy.
Yeah.
So I mentioned at the start this is cheesecake. Is that a fair assessment to make?
Absolutely. That's absolutely fair.
So let me ask you a question then, from the artist's point of view, before we jump down to the writer. For those that are keeping score, Randy is the artist and co-creator. Dean's the writer and co-creator. Randy, did you feel a bit of a challenge, kind of draw cheesecake in today's, how can I put it, prissy attitude? No, I'm not saying prissy. What did I say? Current attitude towards how comic book art should be. That's probably a better way of saying it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have a hard time with it, but I try to be very careful about like how she's presented, and and it's kind of written into the story too, the things that she deals with in it, so that she's she's a woman that you can respect in spite of the cheesecakey scenes and her not having clothes or mini clothes.
Cool. I mean, when I look back and kind of, did mention nostalgia, right? And when I was flicking through the book that you were kind enough to send across, I was thinking Jane. Do you guys have? There used to be a comic strip in the UK called Jane, and she was a war. It's World War I type of thing, and every scrape she managed to get into, somewhere along the line, the clothes disappeared.
Exactly.
and then I thought of the Power Girl, the world's finest comic that came out with Power Girl and Huntress, because Power Girl went through a whole series of getting clothes taken off her because everyone was kicking off she wasn't in the boob window. And then, of course, when I think about space and cheesecake, you can't help but go Barbarella, right?
Yeah.
So, what other inspirations? I must admit, there is one line that made me chuckle. So I want to know who the airplane fan is.
Yeah, I went a little nuts on that one panel.
Looks like I picked the wrong time too. All right, okay. So, other than the well-spotted airplane gag, what other inspirations did you kind of draw from this? Dean, then Randy.
Well, for me, so like how this all spun about, I'll skip the story of how me and Randy met, but like how specifically this idea came out is like we were, he had an idea for a specific character, and he had the whole story laid out. And then what he wanted to do was just build on that. But, he said, hey, I want you to, grab onto this and, mess around with it. Feel free. She's yours too. So then with that, we started kind of just thinking about, like Barbarella, of course, Flash Gordon, like that. I can't imagine how many times I saw that movie as a kid. Yeah. What's funny to me is my memories of it as a kid. Same with the Batman cartoon and the Batman live action with Adam West. And that was a huge inspiration for me writing it, as far as thinking I wanted there to be like a narrator voice, kind of like the narrator in the Batman TV show. Because I love those narrators, whether it's like Dukes of Hazzard, that guy that's like, looks like the Duke boys are in some more trouble again, right? Like, and it's freeze frame while the car's in there. Yeah. I love that. I put it in a few of my stories because, I came up writing more like short stories and stuff. So when it gets to comics, I'm like, oh, wait, first of all, it's mostly dialogue. And second of all, you have to be really concise with your dialogue. Otherwise, you look at some pages and there's just like word bubbles everywhere. It's all white. Yeah. So you got to be really concise with what you write. So it's more of a minimalist practice. So I try to throw in the narrator to give myself a chance to play around.
I suppose this is where the artist comes into the effect, Randy. It has to be show, not just tell, right?
Right. Yeah, and I mean this book's just got a lot of stuff from my childhood in it, and some of those things we talked about: Barbarella, 1 million BC, Buck Rogers, and Spaceman Spiff.
Spaceman Spiff.
Yeah.
Spaceman. Calvin
That's
and
from
Hobbes.
Yes,
right.
yes.
Yeah.
I love
that.
Calvin and Hobbes. Like they are my favorite. They're my jam from years ago. Even now, I still have My Calvin Hobbes book, Spaceman Spiff.
It's like such unwholesome, wholesome goodness, you know?
It's like you don't want to have a kid like Calvin, but you like reading about
exactly.
Yeah.
Such a good way to put it.
I've got two.
Spaceman Spiff. I've never even thought of that. Not even. Well done. It's a fun book. Lots of gags, lots of visual gags. The writing, the cheesecake writing, there are elements where she finds herself in odd positions. What can I say? It's the way it works.
It's not gravity.
I'm going to be honest. When I saw it, I laughed. You know, I was like, "Yeah, that's exactly what would happen." You know, the book is based in the '60s, right? So that's a key point to bear in mind when you're reading the book. It's not today's modern world of how things are seen. It's how things were in the '60s. So that's kind of where I suppose the juxtaposition of what she goes through early doors from her mission control cohorts, shall we say?
Yeah, if they acted that way today, they would definitely there'd be a huge shutdown of that whole institute. There'd be a lot of people getting new jobs.
I'm saying it's yeah. HR would be really busy. It'd be like controller number 1, come to HR. Controller number 2, come to HR. Controller number 3, you're done for already.
Right, you don't even need to come. Just pack up and get out.
So it's cool.
Go ahead.
Art-wise, it is the book. The book, you mentioned Image, and I can see where you get that. It's very cartoony in places, very elongated. Randy, is this your normal style, or did you have to kind of curvy it up a bit to kind of make the cheesecake connection?
Maybe a little bit. I mean, I do tend to draw things a little bit more angular, but I haven't changed up a whole lot, really.
Cool. Excellent. And I suppose there is a real world event going on at the minute. Were you conscious of making her a Ukraine citizen, or is that kind of just an unfortunate coinkydink?
No, it's not a coincidence. I mean, I had that specifically in mind because that's going to be a tremendous crucible for that character later on.
Cool. Excellent. Brilliant. See?
Yeah.
And answered every question.
She's been gone the whole time, you know, and she's in stasis for like 40 years, right?
Yeah, so the story actually flashes forward because she goes into cryo sleep to get to this planet, right? So by the end of the first issue, even though we're not on Earth, it's already present day.
All right, cool.
And that kind of, but at the same time, I'm always trying to envision the future from the 60s.
Oh,
you know,
right, okay.
Like in my head, I'm trying to think of, well, no, what is space like from a 60s perspective? Not like, how do we think of space? Because, you know, then we have all these ideas that are built around, say, Deep Space Nine or Guardians of the Galaxy. If you're like just more of a normie that's not into like geek culture, you've probably seen that. So you're at least thinking of that kind of stuff. But, you know, we're thinking of space stations, Deep Space Nine, aliens, all that stuff. But I'm more interested in like Flash Gordon and how they thought space was.
All right, okay. Hey, you guys mentioned Star Trek, and Randy, we were talking before the show about Star Trek. I've got to admit, I've got me some Babylon 5 going on. I'm quite, you know, I'm as much as I love Trek, and I was saying already, I've just finished Picard season 3. But you know, if you want to talk about grandiose ideas and things that look different, I think Babylon 5 is the place to go. Yeah, the Home Away from Home and all that sort of stuff. Although, admittedly, the script is wooden as anything in places. Not saying anything bad against Straczynski. I'll never get him on the show.
I think like Babylon 5 was good because they did go weird with it, right? Like
not everybody's bipedal. Yeah.
Whereas then you look at something, and I don't dislike it, but you look at something like The Expanse, and it's very grounded, and I love that. I enjoy that, but that's not what this is. This is more like fantastical. There is groundedness to it, but only if we want to.
Yeah.
If we want to go freaky and weird with it, that's where it's going to go.
Cool. It's cheesecake, and there is nudity and suggestive scenes throughout the book. That's part of the charm. for sure. All right. When it came to putting those panels into place, Randy, were you kind of, how can I put this? So you're aware that people are going to buy it for that element, or are you thinking it's a natural progression of the character to go through that? You know, you're aiming for a certain particular crowd to put the book.
I know that some people will buy it just for that, and I'm hoping if they do, that they're going to find that there's more to it than just that.
Yeah. Cool. So, okay, that's fine. So when you think about the kind of scrape, some of it is natural. You know, she gets into a fight and her clothes get ripped. Very much Padme Amidala in from whichever Star Wars 2. Attack of the Clones. Attack of the Clones. It was.
It's great to point that out, right? Because it's not always Barbarella in your face, kind of, right? Sometimes it's Star Wars. Star Wars does it too.
Yeah. Well, Star Wars does it. Everyone does it. I mean,
right.
That's the
I
point,
wanted to do like a number of visual nods throughout the book. Like you pointed out the airplane kind of Easter egg, and like later in the book, there's a shot that's it's Raquel Welch right out of 1 million BC, and but it kind of had to. That's what it is, you know. It's intended to be kind of a tribute shot, you know, not just a knockoff, but you know, you got to tear her close up to get her there, you know.
Yeah, and I think that you make a valid point, and this is what I think some people kind of get bent out of shape about in today's world. Is to see a book, a sexy book, whether it be Natalya or whether it be Vampirella or whether it be whomever on the cover. And everyone's up in arms saying, "Oh, you can't do this." But it's like we've been doing it for years. It always strikes me, and I'm going to annoy loads of people when I say this. It always strikes me as idiotic when people diss comic books for how comic books display women who are curvy, because I know women who are curvy. Mm-hmm. I hear nobody complain about a Nicki Minaj video on MTV, and yet more people will watch that than read a comic book. So I think those that are giving it this need to.
Well, I think they got to more admit that they're also picking and choosing too, right? That they're also letting it slide in some cases and not in others, and that's what we should do. We should let it slide in some cases and definitely not in others. There's sometimes where that's totally a horrible representation and you shouldn't be doing it that way. Mm-hmm. And also for me, from an artistic standpoint, at least as a consumer of comic books, you know, I love Jim Lee's 90s X-Men.
Yeah.
All of his women look identical. If you took out the color, they're all identical. Like even regardless of race, like Storm looks like Psylocke, looks like Rogue. If you took their hair off.
I'll take it a step further.
I love Jim Lee though. One of my favorites.
If you take the colours and the costumes off a Mark Bagley character, you will be able to tell whether it's man or woman. It's great.
And if it fits the style, I guess that's cool. But like, I do think it's a challenge to be able to draw different body types.
It is.
Yeah.
As someone who I do draw, but it's so hard to do various body types.
Yeah, I like to doodle, and people have seen I've got a pad to hand. But no matter where, the first thing if I draw women, the first thing I always have to sort of rub out and start again is the boobs, because I think to myself, I get in my own head, have I drawn them too big? Is this Power Girl? Is it someone else? What's going on? And I just, you know, it's one of those things that you just kind of, you know, for me, I'm not a professional. I just do it for fun. So, you know.
Well, and for me, that makes me think when I do a guy, I would start with the shoulders. Yeah. And as far as like secondary sexual characteristics are concerned, like that's almost the male equivalent of like a chest. And the reason why they're so perfect is because, hell, that's easier to draw. It's easier to draw a buff guy with a six-pack than it is to draw somebody with a beer gut. It's easier to draw someone with perfectly round-orbed boobs than it is to draw someone with with a ski slope boobs.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
True.
Why did you want to jump in on this? Because you're our resident artist par excellence.
Yeah, you know.
Honestly, when the characters are perfect and exaggerated, you don't have to worry about them being accurate.
Yeah.
It does make it easier. It's a lot easier. Huge, muscly guys don't have to be built like normal people.
Yeah. I mean, Catwoman's been getting away with it for years, hasn't she? Bless her cottons.
And some of the poses too. And you know, you'll get your detractors online. Like me and Randy will joke with each other about the ones who will come in because we've gotten comments about it. And you know, with my this is only my second book that I've ever written, and the last one, some of the ads also, it does feature a prominent female character, and she's not the main character, and she does seem like she's being saved the whole time. But like the whole punchline with that story is that he's a bounty hunter and she's the bounty, and they both got kidnapped. But at the end of it, he still locks her up and takes her away. Like he's not trying to save her because she's a woman. Yeah. You know, and she uses her sexuality to get them out of difficult situations throughout the story. Yeah. And it's like, if you have that skill, why wouldn't you? If we're going to have stories that are about tough guys using their muscles, why wouldn't you have stories about pretty girls using their looks? That's kind of the same thing. Yeah,
that's a fair shout. And the whole saving the heroine thing, I mean, Doctor Who's been doing it from the 60s, right? You know, Doctor Who's been running around with young girls and nobody calls him out on it. I mean,
right, especially, I think some of it has to do with the way you do it. You know, it's kind of how you handle it. Like Doctor Who handles it well, you know? Cool. One guy that some people rub the wrong way, but I think he handles it well, is Josh Whedon.
Well, Josh
I've been okay with, not as a person,
personally.
But his stories, I like how he represents men and women.
I do. I've always liked his dialogue.
I think his dialogue is sparkling. Granted, but he has his halo has been tarnished somewhat recently.
A little bit,
yeah. So,
but my favorite thing about him is how he weaves groups together. I think that's increasingly important in books and stories and movies and comics, because people are so fractured in society that we look to stories for almost like a parasocial community. Yeah. You know, so we're looking to see different people interact with each other in a group. And so like Cosmo Natalya starts out with just one character, but by the end of the third issue, there's going to be at least a group of 4. Cool. You know, and maybe in the next story, it's a different group, you know, like where she's meeting different people, and how do those people get along with each other? Cool. And I think that's what's going to keep people reading it. You know, hopefully they'll come in. Well, not hopefully, but they'll probably come in for the TNA. But like, then maybe they'll stick around because they're like, wow, like page to page, to page. Randy's art is some of the most solid stuff that I've seen in a long time. Because like a lot of people phone pages in, and I don't blame them, because look at the page rates, man. Like, what do you want them to do?
Well, I think digital art has been a game saver or game changer when it comes to the idea of, you know, phoning it in, as you said.
So much time. Yeah. So much.
You can like draw one panel and then just change. That's it. Page 2 done. Oh no, I need that panel again. I'll invert it. Oh, there you go. There's panel 4 on page 6. You know, I get it. You know.
But you can only.
Sorry?
Oh, yeah. I was to say, you can only erase a piece of paper so many times before it's trash.
Yeah. Trust me, I've got a book full of that. Right, before we take a look at the book, which we're going to do in a little bit, time for one of our ads for one of our other shows. You guys mentioned nostalgia. That time, there's only one place to go. It's the Old Timers. Check it out.
Do you want to find out what makes the professor do his happy dance? Check out the Old Timers Comic Book Show, only on the UCPN.
The Old Timers Comic Book Show, where the hosts aren't old, but the comics most certainly are. Next show up, we're doing a 1989 special. There you go. Check it out. Which books do you think will be in from 1989? I could tell you 2 of them, but watch the show. All right, time to have a look at what we've been talking about. There we go. There she is in all her almost thigh-high glory. It is Cosmo Natalya. I love some of this art. This art's great. It reminds me a lot of like the Weird Science, the EC Comics type cover, where you've got the heroine here, and then outside there's some sort of zombie monster waiting to grab her or whatever. I thought it was really clever.
You could say this was directly inspired by Wally Wood, you know, from EC Comics and Weird Science magazine.
So perfect. I was going to say Weird Science. Wally Wood's infamous for Power Girl as well, isn't he? Bless his cotton socks.
Sally Ford, a lot of good stuff.
Well, the idea, at least as I understand it, so apologies if I have misheard this, but where I heard it was that when they created Power Girl Wally Wood was so annoyed at having to do like a feminist comic that he kept making her boobs bigger and bigger and bigger as the issue. And they expected somebody to stop him at some point, and nobody ever did.
Nobody did.
And that's why Power Girl is so buxom.
That sounds about right.
That's hilarious.
So there you go. It is anecdotal. I wasn't there, so cool. I have to say, in this first page, we kind of get the kind of humor that we're aiming for on this one. You've got the president at one point saying, "Women going into space, really?" Then he sees the pictures and he's like, "I'll keep these, yeah." Is that right? That's kind of like the kind of hashtag sleazeball we're dealing with there.
I couldn't answer as to why the photo is a centerfold.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Did your blood run cold, or was that just Jay Giles that did that? Sorry, I couldn't resist it. Bad joke. Then we get a kind of brief introduction to Planet X. We get some pictures of our heroine, and that's where things get off. That is kind of our starting point. Quite innocent, I guess. Mm-hmm. And then things take a little bit of a sideways turn later on in the book. How much fun was it, Randy, because you've got lots of different things going on. You've got different environments, you've got kid characters, you've got the heroine, you've got mission control, you've got the spaceship, you've got space. How was it? How much fun was it kind of putting that all together? Or was it kind of like, you know what, God damn it, why did I do this?
Well, about 5 or 6 panels into the spacecraft interiors, I started having a few regrets because there's kind of a lot going on in some of those.
Oh, there is.
But there's so much fun to draw, And by the time I really got tired of it, I was planet side and working on something else.
Is that how you approach work? You take it page by page?
Mm-hmm.
You don't go for the fun stuff and then leave yourself to drudge?
No, I did this one in sequential order from start to finish.
That's what does my head in. I draw the character. I'll draw a character in action, and then I can't be bothered to draw the buildings. Next. What can I say? This is why I talk about it. What's that phrase? Those that do, those that don't do podcasts.
I like that. It's funny.
And here we go. So this is the cheesecake element we're talking about. For me, I was kind of like, what you talking about? I don't get it. At this panel, top panel here in the right, as we're looking, I didn't get it till it was this one, and then I saw it. I was like, oh, I see. Now I get the joke, man. Yeah, and it's kind of from that point on, things go a little bit hair up wire for the girl. I can see the humor in it. I think it's great. I don't have, I like cheesecake, and I have put it in fishnets, and I'd buy the book in a million times over. You know what I'm saying? For everyone who watches the show, they all know about my fishnets love. That's fine. Dan used a tenner. So how does it work for you two? Because you're both co-creators on this. Mm-hmm. And yet, Randy, you went to Dean and said, right, go for it, do what you want. Who gets the control and nod then?
I think I kind of domineered this first book a little bit, and because it was so much of it was kind of already put together, but I couldn't really get it into a working kind of script. And I needed somebody who could write for that. And I kind of gave him this breakdown, and then Dean took it and put it into a more finished script. But then as I was drawing, I kept changing stuff and adding things. And so when we go to the future ones, I had to kind of get my fingers out of the pie a little bit.
Well, and it kind of makes me, I don't know if this is true too, this could just be anecdotal, but I heard that when Kirby and Lee worked together, it was like sometimes it would start with the pages being done, and then he would write the script to it after.
Yeah, I've heard
and so how this has been working has been really interesting. I really like it because, it's a collaborative art, unless you're doing your own comic. And it's like being in a band or something like that, where you're feeding off each other. So he would add complete pages that weren't in the script, and then he would add dialogue, and then sometimes I would go back and maybe change it. you know, and like that, it's fun to me because it involves a lot of like respect in the other person's craft and being like, but also respect in the sense that like, hey, if you change something I did, I'm sure there's a reason, right?
Yeah,
like
that's a good call.
if you changed it, I'm sure there's a reason. I'm not going to take it personal.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take a look at it, you know, and like, so that comes with like a sense of like honesty and trust where you're kind of going back and forth, and it only makes the project better. It only makes it better because there's jokes in there. I'm not the best at being funny when I write it down. I feel like sometimes I'm funny when I talk, but when it comes to writing, it's hard for me to be funny on paper.
Yeah.
And, you know, Randy injects a lot of that humor into the script. And, you know, to just be able to go back and forth like that. And there were even whole panels that Randy would be like, hey, I'm going to go back and redraw that, or pick a few panels that you think are the weakest ones. You know, and that's tough because now I have to criticize him. I can't draw it. You know what I mean? Well, and that's
is it criticize?
Really
is that the right word? Sorry to interrupt. Is that the right word?
Maybe not. Right?
No, I think
critique. Yeah.
Critique. Right.
Constructive.
It's French. It sounds better or something.
Yeah.
So does Menage a Trois, but that's like for book 3, right?
Right.
Yeah. But it's tough for me to judge my own work too, because the stuff I think is great, everybody hates, and the stuff I hate, everybody likes. So
interesting. Does that mean that imposter syndrome sits in?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Sorry, I'm just putting that out there.
I think that's definitely real, man. I would recommend to anyone who wants to do comics, like, don't listen to it. Like, just keep going.
Yeah.
Like, and because it's probably never going to go away. And if you're trying to always get better, it shouldn't go away. You should always be being like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, man.
How many helicopters on page?
Right, I got to keep trying.
It's funny because what you say absolutely rings absolutely true for me. As I mentioned, I doodle. I do it for fun. I don't do it to publish anything. I'm not that way inclined. But even at my layman stage, if I draw something and the imposter syndrome sits in, I've still got my books where I started drawing, right? So I go back and I check them out and I say, look at this. Look how bad that hand is. Now look at my hand. Oh yeah, I can draw hands. Yes, great. And then that way I build my own confidence back up, and that, you know what, I can see my progression from that panel, from that picture, all the way to where I am now. And that's the worry, is that you plateau out and you just kind of stick at that level. For me, that's how I understand it. But I'm just from the cheap seats. What do I know?
Or you pull it, or you no offense to the great Frank Miller, or you could pull a Frank Miller and somehow like I think
what did happen?
I don't know if he's just mad at his publishers or his audience, or he just is trying to be weird, pulling a Picasso or something. I don't really know what he's doing.
I love Frank Miller's Batman Year One. Batman Year One for me is the best Batman story ever. But his current art after Sin City, it's an acquired taste. It's probably as polite, because I'm never going to get Frank Miller on the show either. So you know, but Frank, if you're listening,
come on.
But it's like, it's funny because even if you look back at things like The Dark Knight Returns, the very first one back in the 80s, the level of satire that's in that work is now shown, rather than in his written work, it's shown in his artistic work. So I think that level of satire has always been there, but we've just not noticed it so much because we're blown away by everything else.
And I think he came out of his traditionalist, like, no offense to him, but I loved it when he drew traditionally.
I
really liked his traditionalist style.
DK3 is terrible.
But you're right. In the first Dark Knight Returns, he was starting to get a little weird with it. That's when he was starting to kind of play around with representation of lines and stuff.
And just the writing of it, the fact that, you know, everyone is the kind of the nth degree version of themselves. Batman's analytic. Clark Kent is the traditional Boy Scout, like, but to the highest extreme of those characters. You know, there's no middle ground with them. It's like, that's who he is.
Literally has a bald eagle on his hand in that one scene that just flies out.
And that's what makes it satire. And I can't believe we didn't see it back in the 80s when we were reading it. We're like, whoa, this is great. And like, actually, no, he's like sticking two fingers up at you. He's taking.
Nobody got it with RoboCop either, man. Like, or with Starship Troopers.
I didn't mind RoboCop 2. I'm not going to lie. I didn't mind it at all. And I absolutely loved RoboCop Terminator from Dark Horse, which he wrote with Walt Simonson on art. So
I haven't seen that.
You should check it out. The idea that the RoboCop program is the start of Skynet.
Oh.
Huh.
And then the kind of head and the send Terminators. Somebody goes back in time to kill RoboCop because he's the Skynet. So Terminators have to go back in time to save RoboCop. But of course, RoboCop's trying to just kill everybody because he's a cop. And that's kind of how it goes.
So the Terminators are trying to save him?
Well, yeah, you have to save RoboCop because he's the
wild.
He's the germ of Skynet.
Oh, that's such a cool idea from a story perspective. The conflict. Oh, it's genius.
Yeah. So do that. So
I should check that out.
Yeah, write that.
That's
Don't draw.
Cool.
Stop drawing.
Yeah, right.
So Dean's mentioned he draws. Randy, you've added dialogue. You've planned out the first issue whole. Do you have visions of becoming a writer artist, Randy?
No. No. Yeah, I'm dipping my toes in with the writing. I've decided I really don't want to be doing it.
Yeah.
He's got some really good ideas though, man. Like usually when I get it, it's all there. You know, like I'm a teacher by day, and I teach all sorts of different topics because I teach like middle school, so you can kind of jump across subjects a lot easier. And when I've taught creative writing, I always tell them like, this is kind of what you need to have for your skeleton to sort of keep people going along. Here's your act 1, your act 2, your act 3. And when I grab something from Randy, it's always already there. Yeah. Like, you know, and for me, then it's fun because then I can just kind of work from there and build on a foundation that's pretty solid. So he's being modest.
I think there's a difference. And I'm just going to put this out there, so no offense is meant by anyone, so please don't leave. I think there's a difference between kind of having your key points, your key elements. You want this to happen, then this to happen, and then trying to get there sometimes. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah. That's where I was getting from building blocks to having a panel-to-panel script that I can really start laying out. It's two different things. I mean,
Dean, you mentioned Kirby earlier, and everyone loves Kirby art-wise. Everyone thinks he's the bee's knees, and he is. However, there's a whole range of people who think he's awful as a writer. And, you know, some of his 70s stuff at DC just didn't work for them. I'm one of those people. It just doesn't work. And it needs someone like Stan Lee to come in and put the kind of the polish on it. So, I mean, you know, you can still have great ideas for plots and ideas of what you want to see, but as you say, try to get the structure from there all the way through. And dialogue's hard.
Dialogue is, I've always, ever since I first started writing, that's why I was more of a narrative writer. I mean, geez, in the other comic that I'm working on, it's a horror Western comic, and the main character doesn't even talk.
That's handy.
He never talks because I didn't know what I wanted. Like, I didn't know what I wanted him to sound like. So I was just like, well, you know, I thought about playing Legends of Zelda as a kid, and I was like, well, what if he's like Link and like he does? I haven't played the newer games, but like in the old ones, he never spoke, and I always loved that. I always thought that was so weird. So I was like, okay.
Characters that don't talk are so much harder to draw.
Why?
Characters that don't talk are so much harder to draw.
Yeah, why?
Because you have to communicate everything visually
through body language.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty much me as the writer, just kind of going like this and just being like,
yeah. Things like, let me write this down. Silent man stands still. There you go.
There was literally a line I wrote because there's somebody working on the 3rd issue. Each issue is being done by a different artist, but I'm keeping the same letterer, the same colorist. Like everybody's the same except the guy who's doing the lines. And right now somebody's working on it, and I just wrote like, Jake looks incredulously. And I got the picture, and I was like, that's not really what I was thinking. And so I wrote some more, and she was apologizing, and I was like, no. I was like, I gave you one word. I gave you one word to go off of. Like,
it's like that.
Yeah. I was like, well, it's contextual because he thinks that the person's BSing him. So it's that kind of incredulous. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
so I was like, I get that you didn't understand it. That's my fault. Like, I'm a very bare bones script writer for comics. And I don't know if it's good or not, but like, it's like, I want to trust the artist that like, you know how many, I think this can fit on a page, and I'm hoping if it doesn't, you'll tell me. But I don't really want to be the one that decides the panels. Like, I don't think I know better how to panel break it than the artist does, but that's just me.
So then this partnership you've got going on is perfect then, right?
Oh, it works perfect because, I mean, he's way more than competent in my eyes. Like, I'll say, I mean, I remember one of our first interactions, I was showing him a logo that I had gotten somebody to do, and he was just like, give me a second. And same thing with like something else. I had a 3D sculpt I had somebody do, and he was like, oh man, let me take a look at that. And you know, I didn't ask him to do it, and then he returned with something that was more than I had thought of in my head, in my imagination. I was like, oh, that's amazing. Like, so, you know, working on stuff together for me is like a dream, because it's like, if I can't come up with a good enough idea, I'm sure he will.
Cool. That's absolutely perfect. Well done. All right, here we go. What have we got? Randy, you're on Instagram.
Yeah.
There you go. There is the long address. Yes, I know it's long. Don't blame me. Blame Instagram, please. Or you could just go to Instagram and type in Randy_Nunley. I bet my last bottom dollar that will get you to where you need to go. Pretty much. The Kickstarter is live today. There we go. Interested in backing it? There's the link. Yes, I know it's long. That's what she said. But no, seriously. Go to Kickstarter, type in Cosmo Natalya, 1 of 3, Journey to Planet X, and you'll find it. It's that simple. Dead simple. Or you could pause this, write it down, and go for it, and go for your guns. Don't do it when halfway through the pod, you make me look stupid. I already am. There you go. Cool. Right. Last 60 seconds. Randy, give me your best 30-second pitch of why people should pledge towards Cosmo Natalya.
Cosmo Natalya is our first project that Dean and I have done together, and it's absolutely just a fun romp and cheesecake. And there's evil scientists, misogynistic mission control guys, space dinosaurs, fungal-based waters, everything you could want, all in there.
Cool. Dean, your turn.
I think he undersold the space dinosaurs. That is seriously the reason you should buy this book. You probably haven't seen a good space dinosaur. If you've ever seen one, it's probably been a long time. So come check that out. And we also, it's not in the first issue, but we're also going to have some space mushrooms too, some sentient space spores. So it gets weird. It's going to get weird. I warn you guys.
We should have put Lost in Space in the influencers then, shouldn't we?
Absolutely.
That would have been a great one.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, watch out for space carrots. Danger, Natalya, danger!
Oh, God, that's got to be a line, right? It has to.
Yeah.
It's inevitable.
There.
Just credit me now. Thank you very much. Thanks, cheers. You're all there. Don't forget to tip your waiters. Right, there you go. Thank you so much to Randy and Dean for hanging out with me to talk about their project. I will say this. I don't care about the state of the comic book industry right now. In my head, there are plenty of rack space for any type of book, and that includes Kickstarter. If you like cheesecake, get cheesecake. If you don't like cheesecake, don't get cheesecake. If you do like cheesecake, get this one. You know, it's a lot more fun than some well-published books that I see on a weekly basis over on Comic Crusaders. Not that I'm going to name any names, Cenoscope, but still, you know, they're never going to be on the show either. I don't know what I do this to myself. All right, so it's an opportunity for you to get something that's fun. Yeah, park your brain, enjoy, laugh at the funny bits. What more do you want? Really, really. Randy, Dean, thank you so much. It's been an absolute blast.
Thank you.
All right, guys, don't forget to check out the UCPN for the rest of your favorite shows. You saw the advert for earlier, the Old Timers Comic Book Show. And if you like everything Marvel, don't forget the No Price Podcast for all your Marvel Comics, Disney Plus, MCU shenanigans. Secret Invasion is just around the corner. And of course, TDC, where they might even talk up the new Flash movie. Batman movie. The Flash movie, with whoever's in it. Who knows? All right. I've been your host, Johnny Machine Hughes. And as always, adios.
Visit undercovercapes.com for the latest and greatest podcasts via the Undercover Capes Podcast Network. Also visit our parent company website, comiccrusaders.shop, all about comic pop culture.